Next, a look inside Gateway Arch National Park, the museum bison with Ranger Carl. The ranger stands next to a replica of a bison.
Hi, I'm Ranger Carl. Welcome to Gateway Arch National Park. We're visiting a museum underneath the Gateway Arch today to learn about some of the objects and some of the themes inside of our museum. One of my favorite parts of the museum to talk about is the bison. And behind me is a life-size replica of a bison.
Brown and black bison with curved horns.
Some people also refer to this animal as a buffalo. No matter whether you call it a buffalo or a bison, this animal was a very important animal to the Native Americans living on the Great Plains. Native Americans who lived in the Great Plains, many of them lived in a type of home called the teepee.
A brown buffalo hide teepee.
Which I like to refer to as our country's first mobile home. And the teepee was made of bison skin. This animal would weigh over 2,000 pounds, and at this time period we believe that there were somewhere around 40 million bison living on the Great Plains in herds. To give you a visual idea of how many 40 million is, if we were to line all these animals up from nose to tail in a single file line, that line of bison would circle the entire earth, not once, not twice, but a little more than 3 times.
Stuffed brown bison on display.
So this animal was very important to the lifestyle of the people living out there. They were going to use the skin of the animal to make their clothing, dresses for women, pants for men, shoes for the family, to make their suitcases, which are called parfleche cases. They also would use the bison skin to make the teepee, which we have talked about in another video here in the museum. And so this animal, I like to refer to as the walking shopping mall of the Great Plains. The people that lived on the Great Plains who hunted this animal, who lived in teepees, would use almost every single part of the animal for one purpose or another. We already talked about the skin of the animal. They would use the stomach as a cooking pot. They would use the bladder of the animal as a canteen or water bag. They would use the tendons of the animal, also called sinew, to use for thread, for sewing clothing, and for sewing the pieces of the buffalo skin together to make the teepee as well.
Close-up of a curved black horn.
They had other uses for other parts of the animal, including the horns were used for cups for drinking out of, and bones, especially flat bones like the scapula or shoulder bone of the animal, could be used as a plate for eating your food off of. So almost every single part of this animal had one use or another used by the people living out there in the Great Plains. As you can imagine, hunting an animal this size would be very difficult, be very dangerous. In the early days, before the Europeans brought the horse to this part of the world, Native Americans were hunting bison on foot. They were using bow and arrow, they were using spears, and they were using a method called a buffalo jump, where they would actually move a herd of bison or buffalo and make them stampede over a bluff, and that's how they could kill a large amount of animals that they needed to at any time. So when the horse was brought to this part of the world from the Spanish, it made the life of a Plains Indian much easier and much safer, as they could hunt this animal on the back of a horse. Bison can run over 25 miles an hour, so you cannot outrun them, and they are the largest mammal in North America. So the bison is another one of my favorite things to talk about here in the museum.
Logo, NPS Arrowhead. Text, Gateway Arch National Park, St. Louis, Missouri, 2020.